Vivian speaking more about city life.
关注房子，关注城市，更关注生活。
I will see you every Wednesday night.
国际生活家直播采访秀 Vivian speaking， 每周3晚7点半，不见不散。
Good evening, this is Vivian speaking, and it's my honor to have Julian with me for the next 45 minutes. And he is headmaster of Wellington, Tianjin. So welcome, Julian.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, and today our topic is bilingual education. So what is bilingual education?
Well, for us, I think the key emphasis is on a program where 2 languages are taught in our school, Chinese and English. Equal weight is given to the 2 languages, and a child grows up through his journey in learning, understanding and speaking and reading and interacting in both languages equally.
Okay, actually we have a definition here. So bilingual education involves teaching academic contents in 2 languages, right? In a native and a secondary language with varying amounts of each language used in accordance with program expectations, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, the program is delivered equally 50-50 Chinese
50-50.
and English, but not, you wouldn't measure each day within 50-50, but across the year, across their time in the school, children are exposed to as much English as they are Chinese, so that the language development is equally as strong in both contexts.
Okay, but in Wellington, can the students get that 50-50 language? Because I think for the Chinese people, for the Chinese kids there, they can speak Chinese at home, right? And they speak English at school. But for some of the kids from America or Europe, right? So how can they do that?
That's a good question. Really the aim is that we begin very gently with the introduction, because a lot of Chinese nursery children, of course, don't speak Chinese very well either, because they're only learning language, they're only 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
So the importance for us is to coax them into language use that is confident in both English and the Chinese. So what you will not find with us is a teacher with a stopwatch, 50% of the time doing Chinese, 50% of the time doing English. It's the language in which they're learning is the important thing. So we have 2 teachers. They co-teach, and the language is not translated, but that's interacted in different ways using different vocabulary.
Okay.
But in encouraging children to feel comfortable in one language and then transposing it into another one.
Okay. Actually, I went to Wellington and I saw, in a class there has actually 3 teachers there, right? And definitely there is 1 Chinese teacher there. So the Chinese teachers, sometimes they speak Chinese to the kids, right? Okay. All right, so I will transfer to Chinese apart, okay? 那是这样啊，我今天呢采访的这位嘉宾，他是天津惠灵顿的校长，是Julian先生。那么今天呢，我们的主题呢也是双语教育。在这里面呢，刚才我们也说了，双语教育其实我们是有一个自己的定义。那这样导播我们切下的这个中文部分的一个定义。使用双语教育这个术语是指一个把2种语言作为教学媒介语的教育体系，其中的一种语言呢，往往是，但不一定是学生的第一种语言所以说基本上双语教育这个就是词呢，通常是指在学生教育生涯的某一个阶段使用2种或者更多的一个教学媒介语。那么在这里面的时候呢，他刚才也提到了，那么作为2种语言的在教学方面来讲，一般是50%和50%。那么我刚才也是问到了一个问题。 那如果作为中国孩子在惠灵顿来讲的话，因为他毕竟在家呢，他会说中文，在学校他说英文。但是，那如果作为一个美国学生的孩子，或者就是美国孩子，或者是英国孩子，他怎么能保证这50%呢？在这里面呢，那惠灵顿学校来讲的话，他一个班级来讲的话，他一定会有一名中方的教员。那在这过程中呢，他们也会跟这些孩子来说一些中文的，大概是这样的一个情况。Okay, so how about we talk about something about yourself, because we barely know you. How long you have been in Tianjin?
Yeah, you barely know me. I've been here 4 years now, so actually 4.5 years. I first came in the autumn of 2013. I came on an exchange visit to Wellington. I was still teaching in the English version of Wellington College, and I came for 3 months, and I was lucky enough to be offered a job here permanently.
Yeah.
And we came across in August.
Permanently?
Yeah. And we're now here 4 years.
Okay. So how did you find the changes every year in Tianjin, especially, I mean, in the fields of education?
Big changes, I think, in education in China, and Tianjin in particular. I think Tianjin is a very... I've often said when I talk to people outside of Tianjin who don't know the city very well, how receptive it is to education. It has great universities, it has great high schools, it has great junior high schools. It has a great reputation for educating its young people. And so it's a privilege for us to be here in the city in the first place. But then watching the pace of change as schools across the city have adopted, for example, international curricula, so that they become more open to education from the US or Britain, Australia, for example, all within the confines of the city. So the big change for me has been that drift from a rigorous Chinese education to a system whereby the rigor of the Chinese education is also then, if you like, added to with an international program in a lot of schools. And the latest, I would say, fashion, maybe that would suggest it was a temporary thing, but the latest trend, I would say, in education is bilingualism.
Bilingualism. To be honest, I don't think Tianjin is kind of a bilingual city. So,
you mean the people aren't native English speakers as well as native Chinese speakers? I think you're probably right. Yeah. I think it suffers a wee bit from its proximity to Beijing. I think English hasn't been perhaps its priority language in the last few years. I have to say though that my experience, in the city, in terms of its leisure opportunities, its educational opportunities, and its sort of retail opportunities, I think it's increasingly westernized, increasingly open to English as a medium of communication. So, I find it a very easy city to live in, and maybe that's not always been true in Tianjin.
Okay, so I heard that you've been the Chinese history teacher back to England.
Yeah, I taught I wouldn't presume to have said I was a Chinese history teacher because China has so many thousands of years of rich history. One of the interesting things in UK education has been the development of an interest in Chinese history, and particularly modern Chinese history. And one of the things I was responsible for just before I left England was drafting the program in our school for a program of education from China from 1911 to the modern day. I found it an absolutely stimulating, fascinating topic to research. And I think they're still using my book that I wrote for the course in the school in England. So,
okay, all right. So, 那刚才呢，我们大概的了解了一下Julian先生呢，他现在来到天津呢，一共有4年的时间。然后我也提到，就是因为我们今天的话题是 bilingual education， 那么在这里面呢，我觉得呢，天津并不是说一个非常典型的一个双语城市。那么他在这里面呢，他也有体会，但是他觉得在教育方面，然后在娱乐的一些场所，包括在一些零售的一些场所，那么这几个领域里面，大家的一个英语水平还是在逐渐的就是长进的。同时呢，也是想给大家有一点小透露哈，他其实在英国的时候呢，他也是主要做的呢是一个对于中国历史的一个教学。那这是我们就简单的对Julian 先生的一个简单的一个介绍，一个了解。那大家想不想了解就是他的 就是怎么说呢？惠灵顿学校其他的师生老师们对他是怎么评价的那这样的话，让我们导播来切个图。Okay, I will a little surprise for you, and this is a little video from the staff of Wellington, and I think this is your first time to watch it, so just have a look.
Sure that the Wellington College becomes the premier bilingual education in Canada.
And also he has embraced the Chinese culture. When you enter his office, you can see many artifacts about China. I think it's a very good character for a leader. And I hope one day he can tell story for our children in Chinese.
Hi Julian, you were the first person that myself and my family met when we first moved to Tianjin, and you did everything in your power and beyond to help us make that very difficult transition to move to China and made it just so smooth. You're the reason that we're here still. We believe in everything that you do, and just want to thank you for giving my family such love, kindness and support, and helping me develop as a person and as a leader within Wellington College Tianjin. Genuinely, sincerely thank you for everything you've done for me.
Hi Julian, this is just to let you know what a pleasure it's been working with you and being a friend of yours for the last 4 years here at Wellington. Thanks for all the help and support that you've given to me and my family. You've obviously been the best master that I've ever worked for in 20-something years of my career, so thank you very much.
Hi Julian, you are the most handsome master I have ever seen, and I know you will learn Mandarin. So I hope you will be the best master with fluent Mandarin. Keep young and carry on.
Hi Julian, I just want to wish you all the best in your first live TV interview in China. I know that all the viewers that are going to be watching it will get a real good sense of how much you know about education, how much you're able to impart your knowledge to not just to students but also to teachers, and how much I have learned from you in this aspect. So I wish you all the best, and go for Wellington.
Wow, it's so nice, right?
Yeah, I'm a wee bit embarrassed about that now.
So, do you have anything to say to your staff? I think now maybe lots of the staff or the kids' parents are watching.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been a head teacher for very long, but I've been a teacher for a long time, and I know how hard that job is, and I would say that each and every one of my colleagues works incredibly hard. They give of themselves, out of time, the things that people don't see, parents often don't see, and certain children don't see. Enormous energy and effort and preparation and commitment, and often for very little reward. I mean, I'm very grateful for those comments on the screen. I'm quite embarrassed by them, but for me, my job is to bring the best out of them and give them the opportunities to educate our children in the best way they can. If I can get out of the way things that would impede that, then I'm doing my job okay. And so, I mean, they're an enormously talented group of teachers at our school. I know my parents would agree with me, and I think it's a real privilege that I get to work with them in trying to bring the best of our education program to those young people in Tianjin.
Okay, and I want to thanks to Emma and Fiona, and they did a very good job about this video. Thank you. Okay, and also I want to know that being in this position, the headmaster, so what's the most difficult things for you? No difficult things.
There's a lot of things that take a long time.
Okay.
But I would say difficult is not quite the right word. I think stimulating and challenging, I think, with the words I would use, because I enjoy meeting parents. I enjoy dealing with my staff and my colleagues. And I particularly enjoy working with the children. That if you can see the difference you make in 1 week, 1 year, 5 years with those young people, then that's the privilege in itself. I mean, that's really why we're in the job. There are obviously pressures on every school in Tianjin and across the world, and we're under pressure to perform. Our parents want us to be the best school in Tianjin. I want us to be the best school in Tianjin, and I think we're working
Maybe
very,
that's
very
a
hard to make
challenge,
that.
right?
Every day is a challenge. That's one of the reasons to go to work. I mean, if I thought that today would be less interesting, less stimulating than yesterday, I think I would struggle to go to school. But every day is something interesting to do, and some way to push that school forward, and to give our children a better chance in life. And really that's what we're about. We're about giving those children enhanced life opportunities.
Okay, so let's back to our topic. And 首先呢，我还是想说哈，就是还是要对 Emma 和Fiona 表示感谢啊，对，因为是这两位呢来做的这个视频啊，所以说感谢两位。那好，那我们再进入下一个阶段的我们的一个话题。So does a bilingual education mean the same thing for the different nations, right? And in China, definitely, when we talk about the bilingual education, it's the most part that we say is a kind of an improvement of English study, right? So does it only mean to the English study or something beyond that?
There's two very difficult questions there wrapped in together into one. I think the first one, in terms of why China has embraced bilingualism, is it may be slightly different to other countries. I think back to my experience in the UK, and language learning there is in decline. I think it's a nationwide crisis really in language learning, certainly at the upper levels. Despite the government attempts to revive it, it seems to be a process in sad and sorry decline. It doesn't seem to be stopping. In China, the parents I speak to who are interested in a bilingual education are interested really in the motive, in the benefits that you can achieve down the line. And the principal one of those is, of course, the opportunities that a young person will have in terms of employment and education, further education. We were talking before the show about that. You're twice as valuable employee really as I am. In China, I'm a monolinguist. You are a bilingual English and Chinese speaker. So an employer gets two people for every one that they get of me. And I'm acutely aware of that in my office, that there are people with far more talent than I have. And I think that's right. That's exactly how it should be. So I think for our Chinese parents, I think the motivation is strongly what they can give their child as the world opens up for China. And let's face it, the 21st century is China's century. The government policies that it's pursuing at the moment will inevitably lead to children from Tianjin and across the country coming into contact with people from around the world. And if you speak the two great world languages of English and Chinese fluently, if you're biliterate, well, my God, there isn't a company in the world that wouldn't employ you. And I think the life chances for young people who are genuinely bilingual today have never been richer.
Okay. I think you also answer me another question that how this education benefits the kids, right? They can, what kind of job opportunity is waiting for them, right?
Okay, well, I told you it was a hard question, so I've answered it twice. But there's a lot of complexity around bilingual benefits. And I've mentioned the economic and educational ones, that parents who can see into the future, who've got that crystal ball, who think that China will be engaged in the world, as I do, and I think 99% of opinion around the world would suggest that China is opening up to really engage and lead the world. I think that's an important motivation, but it's not by no means the only one. I mean, culturally, and linguistically, if you have two languages in your family, it's only right that your child should be encouraged to grow in those two languages. It doesn't have to be English. If parents speak two languages at home, why not raise your child to speak both languages? So, you want links to your heritage, your grandparents, your family, your history, where you're from. That's important. And a child who grows into an adult who's bilingual has a much stronger grasp of that. I would also encourage people to look at the literature about the improvements in cognitive understanding. For example, a bilingual child seems to have, the research would suggest, a greater ability to reason, a greater ability to use logic and make assumptions drawn from a language where they're working in two different languages, and they can hear different words meaning the same thing. And slowly and over time, they use that skill to develop their understanding of other areas. In terms of logical thinking, there's strong evidence to suggest that bilingual children are not only more confident and more sociable, but they're also more able to make links between, logical links between things, and the ability to read between the lines and to draw inference is such a vital life skill that an adult who has that has such advantages over other people.
Yeah. So how about the bilingual education to be helpful for the kids' mental development? Because some parents may have concern about their kids' mother language first, right? And for example, my kids, he's now is 6 years old, and I hope that his Chinese must be perfect at the beginning, okay?
Yeah.
And then I want him to learn some English. So maybe some parents are gonna concern if they're gonna learn English, will their Chinese be down?
There's a common misconception, I think, with bilingual education and language learning that there is somehow a finite amount of language you can learn as an individual. So in other words, your head fills up with language and vocabulary of Chinese, and that the more English you learn, the less Chinese you have. It's often portrayed as two balloons inside the head, and that as one grows, the other one has to shrink because there's only that confined space. I mean, the literature, the evidence, the research would all suggest that isn't true. There aren't simply two balloons, that as one grows, the other one shrinks. The evidence all screams that a child who learns and is more confident in language A, the mother tongue perhaps, will grow and become more sophisticated in the use of language B as well. And it's difficult sometimes for parents and grandparents in China and across the world to see that process happening, because obviously you see a child developing language skills and you're thinking, oh, hang on, they're using English when I want them to use Chinese. And you can begin to feel a little bit nervous that maybe one language is taking over from the other one. Whereas I would say to parents, that's an entirely normal process. Don't be frightened of that, embrace that. And use it in a sense. Children will inevitably learn or use one language more than the other. That's true of anybody. Don't be frightened of that. That's a process that will happen. But the stronger their bilingualism, the stronger their ability in two languages, the stronger their ability in their home language. And I would again, the research would all suggest that that's the case. So if there are parents and grandparents out there who are worried that going to a bilingual school means that their Chinese will be eroded, I can assure them that over time, the aim is, certainly in a school like ours where they're genuinely bilingually educated, is that their Chinese is as strong and as sophisticated as their English, and to the same level as their counterparts in a Chinese school.
Okay, so how about your Dutch and English?
Well, of course, in a context in China, speaking Dutch as my second language is not really a particularly helpful one, because you don't meet many people who
Speak Dutch.
Dutch, yeah. You don't meet many people who speak English, to be honest. So for me, my bilingual background is perhaps more useful in Europe. Even in England, I have to say, it wasn't very helpful, because everybody who is Dutch speaks perfect English. So the encouragement there is not to launch into the mother tongue.
Okay.
I mean, for a long time, there was this trend, and I think one of the pressures, we might talk a little bit about pressure of bilingualism, and what are the concerns for parents and grandparents about this, is that children learning two languages might begin to prefer one over the other. And if you're beginning to prefer the language of your mother to your father, or your school to your family, which might happen in our case, that can cause some pressure at home. And it was certainly a case for us. I mean, we learnt Dutch first, and my father found it difficult because he didn't speak Dutch. And I think his parents found it difficult that their grandchildren preferred to communicate in a different language to the one that they could communicate in. And that's tension within a family, and I think that's something that parents who go down the bilingual route need to think about.
Okay, so I think that's my next question, so we will leave it later. Okay, I will transfer to Chinese, okay, for a while. 刚才呢，我们就是在这块儿来讲的话，就是因为这个双语教学，我觉得 Julian 他这块提到的他的一个所谓的重要性，我们就不用再提了。但他就是提到几个观点嘛，其实他也说到欧洲来讲的话，其实这个语言学习其实在下降的，因为英语其实它基本上是能够涵盖所有的，所以对其他语言的学习来讲，它是下降。他是说的一个现在一个状况。同时呢，他觉得在中国来讲的话，这个事情其实相对好理解，因为他理解21世纪，其实21世纪的世界就是就是其实是一个21世纪的中国嘛，中国就代表世界。那这样来讲的话，如果你是一个双语学习者，或者是能够运用双语的话，就像我一样，他觉得我的就业机会要远比他大，因为我既能说中文又能说英文。Okay, obvious you cannot understand me. Okay, anyway, 所以说呢，就是那刚才呢，我们所以说逐渐会谈到一个，就是家长都会关心的一个问题，那就是如果你们家的孩子如果在学习中文和英文的时候，那有的家长可能会希望自己的孩子在中文部分要很强，那英文部分就是逐渐跟上就可以呢？会不会随着他对英文的学习，他的中文会逐渐的减小？那刚才那个 Julian 先生他也做了一个很清楚的解释。那么在这个问题上，它是不会出现的，因为两种语言它其实是一种语言学习能力，它会一起在成长，而且这种语言学习能力对于孩子的这种在智力上面的发育，包括情感方面的发育来讲，都是非常有帮助的。那所以说呢，我觉得下一部分呢就是非常重要，而且因为我是一个6岁孩子的妈妈，我会非常关注这部分。那就是你在你的家庭中，那你怎么来做这样的双语教学？那这样，因为它毕竟，然后我们是不是可以先看一段这个惠灵顿的这个双语教学的一个 VCR？ 那好，有请我们导播。Okay, here's another video about 惠灵顿。Yes, they are so cute, right?
Yeah,
I'm so
they're
jealous of you.
lovely.
You can be around, right, them every day. Okay, so here's the thing that I don't think every person can go to your school, right? And they have kind of a national limitation, right?
In the nest, the one you were just showing the video from, that's open to all backgrounds and all ethnicities. So that's an open program, but that's really for our younger years. By the time you get into our primary school, the equivalent of the Chinese primary school, you have to have an overseas passport to come. Our aim is really that we want to encourage parents and children to come to our nursery to really get that bilingual immersion experience. And if they then have to move to the local system, their Mandarin is as good as their rivals and their peers in a local school, but that their English is enhanced. So that I'm very confident by the time a child's been with us for 3 or 4 years.
在这里面 ，hold on， 在这里面我提供一个重要信息啊，他们的 for the 就是幼儿园部分 kindergarten part, so it's faced to all the families, right?
Yes.
Okay. 那在这个幼儿园阶段来讲的话，那所有的中国家庭都可以然后来惠灵顿学校来学习，但是进入小学部分的话，他们是有这种学籍的，就是这种国籍的限制必须是外国国籍才能够进到这个学校。So here's my question: If we cannot go to your school, and how can we start this kind of bilingual education at home? So could you just give us some effective ways or,
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think bilingualism is a commitment that a family makes. And I would say the first piece of advice I would give is go into it as a family with a plan to immerse yourself in bilingualism. I mean, it's not something just to experiment with 2 or 3 years, because a badly a badly run program in bilingualism is not likely to benefit a child. I mean, their Chinese won't develop as much and their English won't develop as much. So it's important that you commit for a long-term period. And I would stress here how important it is to recognise that there will be tension within the family, almost inevitably, about the process of bilingualism. And you know, for parents and grandparents, they can often feel excluded if a child starts speaking more English at home, for example, to people in the family who don't speak English. It can be quite a disconcerting and in some cases upsetting experience. But they have to understand that there will come a time when a child goes through that. And you know, we were talking earlier about your son going through his bilingual experience. There will come a time when his great pleasure and his grandmother's great joy will be where he can understand stuff in English and explain it to her in fluent Chinese. So not only raising his own status as a person who can speak 2 languages, but he can explain to his grandmother. And that is the great joy. He will find great satisfaction and great joy from that. But she will also see the journey that he has come on. And I think for parents, they have to be patient. Make a plan and stick to the plan. And then in terms of practical advice, what can you do if nobody in your household speaks English? Well, there are ways around that. There are books that are in English and Chinese with pinyin translations as well, so you can read together. I would encourage your child to sing English songs, watch English movies and cartoons. Listen to English audiobooks whilst reading a book in English, so that he's seeing or she is seeing and reading and hearing at the same time in the language. And then perhaps the last thing I would say is encourage them to speak English to you, even if you don't understand it. Because if you say something to him in Chinese and he responds in English, you know his brain is translanguaging. He's translating Chinese into English, and he's responding in a way which is so fluent and so sophisticated. His brain is doing something so incredible at that moment that, you may not understand what he's saying, but he's responding to you in a different language. And that's a really high level of bilingualism. If he's translanguaging like that, that's a very sophisticated skill.
Okay. I think, those things is very helpful, right? For example, in my family, right? And my mother cannot understand why I let my kids to watch the English cartoon. And of course, she prefer him to watch the Chinese one, right? That's easy. But, I noticed, actually, I read him the English picture book when he was 1. We started 1. At that time, he has not annoying anything about that, because the English and the Chinese are both the same. And I found out as his age growing, and around 5 and 4.5, if you put on the English cartoon, and he will tell me that, Mom, I want to watch the Chinese one. Because he knows the difference and he wants to choose. So it's totally fine, right? And I need to be patient.
Be patient. If he starts using words interchangeably, so for example, he's speaking to you in Chinese and he suddenly uses an English word, that's fine. That's not a problem. He's using vocabulary that he has from both sides. And actually, that's not something to punish, that's something to encourage, because he's using 2 languages and understanding that they mean interchangeable things. And, if you tell a child you're now speaking Chinese or you're now speaking English, that can be quite confusing. But if they just do it instinctively, because that's the way they've grown up. And I would also say to your mother, I would encourage him to watch and speak and enjoy language, whether it's Chinese or English. The speaking part is often the bit that is repressed. And if he can start singing or telling her stories or talking to her in English, it really it develops their language skills so much faster than if they're quiet and silent. It's why we encourage our children in class to be so vocal, because if they're engaging and they're trying to help each other and they're learning from one another, the acceleration of the language is really evident.
So speaking out is very important.
Exactly. And encouraging.
OK. 那就是在这块，我觉得这一部分我们刚才说的这一部分完全都是干货的部分哈。我觉得就是因为我呢， 毕竟是一个孩子的母亲，那我对这部分的，我觉得我自己感觉是非常有帮助的。第一来讲的话呢，我觉得就整个家庭，他那种达成共识，他说那种 commitment 就是达成共识是特别关键的，因为。就比如说以我们家为例啊，比如我妈妈就不能理解为什么我让孩子去看英文动画片，她更希望晨晨来看那个中文动画片。那么所以说家里的那种人员那个认同，包括就是晨晨的爸爸，就是我儿子的爸爸，包括我妈妈，就是整个一个家庭，我觉得对这个事情的认同是特别重要。第二点，他提到的就是。有耐心就需要在整个事情上的，我觉得家长需要做到的是一个耐心。那除此之外呢，他也提到了几个。如果说家里没有人会说英文，那怎么给孩子创造这种语言环境？其实就是这个意思。第一来讲，他会觉得就是有些书它是上面有中文、有拼音，而且有英文那种书来讲的话，是不是可以去下一些音频因为就正确发音很关键，让孩子一边来看书一边听音频。那第二个来讲的话，唱一些英语的歌呀，包括看一些英文的动画片，都是非常有帮助的。Okay, I think this is a part of our live show. So how about now we invite Dabai to come in to say if we have any question from the audience.
Okay.
OK， 好，很高兴今天又加入到 Vivian Speaking。那么在问题之前呢，我们可以先看几张照片，然后是 Vivian 通过那个去惠灵顿学校进行了一些拍摄，让我们感受一下惠灵顿学校的一些环境和风景。好，导播放一下那 PPT。
So those pictures that we took in your school, right?
Yep.
Actually, that's we call the musical productions very famous, right?
It's one of our great landmarks across the year. I mean, this year we were privileged, I think, to see a production of Les Miserables, which was China's first school production. There were 190 children involved, from 8 years old to 18 years old. And it was just an inspiration to watch them. You know, really one of the most moving things I've watched on a stage. The confidence that young people get from that is more than I could write down on a piece of paper and explain in a report. The teamwork, the coordination, the hard work, the shared sense of purpose, it was quite incredible.
Okay. Very nice.
And the next picture.
This is one of our classrooms. So this is our nest. This is our little ones. And as you can see, they have 2 members of staff, 2 teachers there. There will be a third one floating around. But they have 3 educators in every classroom. And our model is so that our teachers are as highly trained as the expatriate staff, and our TA team are all qualified teachers in their own right, which gives us a real privilege to work with really high-end educators.
And next picture.
There they are again. There's our little ones. Snack time. It's very important that they get a premium quality snack during the day. It's a long day for our young ones. We've just introduced an activity program at the end of the day, so they're there till almost 5 o'clock. Some of our little ones. So.
Okay. So is that the kindergarten?
Yeah, and as you can see, that's year 1 actually, that class. But you see the very small class sizes. They've got great facilities. They've got it's about 1 teacher for every 7 or 8 pupils. So they get a lot of personal care. It means that the teachers know their children very well.
Yes. Music class.
Music. I mean, and you came to the school the other day and you saw our music facilities. These are the sort of practice facilities that our children can use happily. That's a soundproof room. As you can see, there's about 3 drum kits and a piano, so we need it to be soundproof. But, music is a really big part of our programme.
Yes.
Singing, performing on stage. And it ranges from classical music, our orchestra, for example. We've got small ensembles as well, through to big stage productions like the Les Mis that you saw in March, with 190 children in it. So
We are looking forward to it.
Well, I'm reliably informed that the production in March is going to be the biggest and best ever. So
March, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be invited, right?
You'll be invited.
All right.
Yes. Art is also a really big part of our school. It's perhaps one of our leading academic departments. Every year we get students leaving our graduating class going off to some of the best art schools around the world, including Parsons, for example, this year. We have students at Rhode Island School of Design. And it's a joy to watch children who come from schools perhaps where art hasn't been such a high profile subject to one where they're encouraged to really express themselves. And art and design and technology are really big parts of our program.
Okay. Art and music. Yeah. So okay, so that's it. And let's say some if we have.
来，那我们看一下，对，那我们看一下那个网友的评论啊。今天网友的评论依旧非常的热烈。然后其中有一个网友问到，惠灵顿学校相比其他在天津的国际学校，它的优势在哪里
Okay.
What kind of the advantage?
Advantage.
Is back the compare the other international school in Tianjin.
What are the specific advantages? Well, there are very fine international schools in Tianjin. I think parents are spoiled for choice. If they want different forms of international education, there are different schools to choose from. I think our particular strengths are our emphasis on our British background, our values. We're driven by a set of common values which we expect our staff, our pupils and our parents to buy into. We drive our children hard in terms of their results. Our expectations are very high for them. But at the same time, we are determined to produce young people who are not only successful at university, but successful in life. So we want young people who can go into the workplace as confident, and honest and hard-working young people who employers want to take onto their companies. And the one question I ask every time I go to one of the leading businesses in Tianjin. I'm lucky enough to meet several CEOs and GMs. And one question I always ask them is, what sort of young person would you employ? And not one of them says the ones with the best exam results. They all say, I want somebody confident, a good communicator, somebody who buys into the culture of the company and who respects the values that we espouse. And that's really where our emphasis is, that we're as interested in a young person who is 18 as when they're 28 or 38. And that we know we've produced somebody who can become a great old Wellingtonian as well as a great contemporary Wellingtonian.
没有 ，OK， 就是这块来讲的话，其实我觉得他觉得区别来讲的话，还是在于孩子们的一个潜力变化对潜力，我觉得因为就是在这个他这边在提到这个这个就业方面来讲的话，可能大家对于孩子没有人说我是想要那种学习成绩非常好的，更多的可能是。就是在不同方面，他会有很多的潜力啊，包括他会就是在各方面的这种全面发展。所以说，我觉得他觉得惠灵顿会在这个方面，就是不光是重视孩子学习，同时在其他方面的发展来讲的话，会有一个很好的一个教育吧，应该是这样来说。
然后我看还有不少的网友问到啊，就是惠灵顿可以接受中国孩子吗？其实刚才那个朱连先生已经回答过了，就是我们的惠灵顿学校呢，主要在幼儿园的时候会面向中国招生，但是除此之外呢，都只招外国国籍的孩子，对吧？
对，OK。
好，然后我们看还有人问到了，惠灵顿学校有哪些有趣的课外活动呢 ？Yes, what kind of interesting activity after school in Wellington School?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that actually. Your correspondent has obviously been researching us because this year we've introduced a whole range of new after-school activities. I was very keen when I took over to make sure that even the youngest children had the opportunities to study after-school programs. We already have a very strong academy program which runs after school, which is extra classes in both academic subjects but also sports and activities. That runs on a Saturday as well, but our in-school program, the after-school activity program, now incorporates from our youngest pupils to our oldest pupils. They're 3 days a week, they have activities after school. And they can do, well, I mean, the range of things is mind-boggling. I'm lucky enough to be able to coach some football. I have colleagues running reading clubs or debating clubs. I have children doing dance groups, any number of different dance groups, swimming clubs. Really, to us, the only limit was what could we physically fit into an hour and what was within the reach of the school. So, you know, we've had ice skating in the past. We've got now normal skating, if you like, inline skating for our young pupils. We've got judo. We've got activities that you know, children wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to do. I think it's going to be a great program. I'm really excited by it.
OK， 就是那个朱练先生说到，他们在教学当中呢，会有很多有趣的活动，包括读书会，然后游泳俱乐部等等，这些都对孩子的成长会有非常大的帮助。
对，他们现在一般是一周呢会有3天的时间呢，都会有这种课外的活动，而且在周6的时间呢，他们也会融入了一些课外的活动，所以说整体来讲的话，我觉得还是非常丰富的。Okay, I think you know this is today's Vivian speaking. So thank you for joining us, and
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you, I mean the parents, for watching the live show, they can get some very helpful suggestions from the bilingual education. So that is for today's Vivian speaking, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. So bye bye.
Thank you.